Okay. Just give me a second. Okay. Yes. So, what should I say? Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you all back again. So, I'm going to today speak on approaches to diaspora studies. This is your block one core concepts, unit three, which is about approaches to in diaspora studies. So, before I begin my lecture, I like to know because you have been doing diaspora and migration and you know you're familiar with these concepts. So let me just get the feel of the class from you by interacting with you. So tell me something about what do you know about diaspora? How I think you must have known many definitions by this time. So any one of you can come forward to tell me what is diaspora, and then we will discuss about approaches to diaspora studies. Okay. So with that, let me begin my class. So who's going to respond to me? There are eight people in the class. So Nirmal or Swadesh or Vijaya and Kirti, whoever. Just can you respond? Yes. Yes. Nirmal, can I have your opinion on this? Swadesh also is there. Vijaya is there. Yes. Come on, speak up. Huh? Nobody's responding. Or are you all there or not? There is chat box. There is a message. Okay. Yes. Vijaya, can you respond? What is diaspora? Hmm. See, because why I'm asking you, because before I start about the approaches, you should know what is diaspora. I think you know, we must be knowing it. So I want your response. I mean, not only you, I want all of your responses. Can I have your response here? Nirmal, Sudesh, who's going to speak to me? See, the word diaspora comes from, you know, diaspiro. It's a Greek word which means to show over. But the word was, later referred to, the Jews' migration because of exile. You know, the, you must be knowing the story of Jewish migration because it was a forced migration. This word against, diaspora was extended to other, diaspora as well, like African diaspora as well as later American diaspora. Then now this word has lost its meaning by because of its inclusiveness and also its wide usage by referring to various kinds of migrations and various kinds of migrants. Okay. And also the phenomenon of diaspora is very dynamic and complex. So you need different approaches to understand, diaspora. See, approaches means there are two kinds of approaches. Okay, methodological approaches and theoretical approaches. Okay, so these approaches uh, by which we could understand any phenomenon, like you know, all the social phenomenon, all social phenomena is, I mean, understood through two approaches. In as part of academic studies, methodological approach and theoretical approach. That's where we differ from journalism. Academicians, we have to use this, paradigm to understand any phenomenon. Okay, so any social phenomenon. Clear now? So what I'm saying that, see, approaches means how you look at it. Okay, and how you understanding a phenomenon, how you understanding a social phenomenon approaches. You know, or how you are trying to understand a phenomenon, or how you're trying to unpack or study, explain, describe, analyze a phenomenon. Okay, so there are two kinds in academic, literature. That is methodological approach, theoretical approach, by which you try to understand a social phenomenon. So today I'm here to discuss with you approaches to study, approaches in diaspora studies. Okay, what all approaches are existing, okay, in diaspora studies, or you can say, you can put it this way as well, how diaspora was understood by using different approaches. Okay, so it's kind of review, okay, review of approaches to understand diaspora. Okay, so I hope you are understanding me where what I'm doing today, what I'm doing here. That is, I'm trying to explain to you what all approaches are available to study the diaspora, and how diasporic scholars have understood by employing, by using different approaches. Okay, so clear now. So at least now can I get response from anybody here in the class? I think some of you, if you respond, will be good for me. I'll also get motivated to go further. If you're not speaking up, then how would I think, then I should not speak to the mute participants. I should speak to the live participants. Okay. So who's
Hello,
going to
sir.
respond? Yes.
Sir, actually, diaspora came from the Greek word that is diaspora, which is means to scatter, and actually it was referred to the Jewish migration, their
Yeah.
forced exile from the place, and later on, it was used to Armenian diaspora who were forced to migrate from their land due to the Ottoman rule, and later on, it was used to um, other cases such as of the Indians and the Chinese, etc. And in the
Yes.
case of diaspora, there are two kinds of, that is the homeland as well as the host land.
Mm.
And the homeland is often considered as the mythical land, the imagined land, and which is the ideal place. And they always want to return to their homeland, as in the case of the Jewish. And these are the basic aspects of diaspora, and various scholars like Rohin Cohen and Safran has theorized about
Yes,
the
yes, Nirmal, we will discuss all those, theoretical understanding on diaspora. It's good. I think Nirmal spoke. Nirmal, you speak from where? Punjab, no?
no, sir, from Kerala.
So you're from Kerala. Okay, that's fine, Nirmal. Thank you for your response.
Thank you, sir.
So actually, basically, Nirmal, approach means, how you try to understand a phenomenon. How you are trying to study that phenomenon. That is called approaches. There are two kinds of approaches. Okay, methodological approaches and also theoretical approaches. Okay, which may vary from studies to studies. Okay, so, which I'm going to explain today, what all approaches were used or existing to understand diaspora, and also what approaches were used by diasporic scholars to understand diaspora. Okay, that's fine. So the definition diaspora has changed from 1960s to, again, like, it refers to exile group, overseas ethnic communities, racial minority groups, and so on and so forth. Let us discuss some important aspects of how the phenomenon of diaspora is looked at over time. Okay, from approach changed over the time and space. Approach also have changed, you know, to understand diaspora because of changing nature of any social phenomenon. Approach also will change. Let me explain various theoretical approaches over the period and also the global events that shaped the diaspora imagination and their interrelationship with host, homeland, and on transit as well. Okay, so the various approaches to understand diaspora. You know very well, it's not a monolithic category, it's a diverse term, it's a very umbrella term. Okay, the term, it refers to historical experience and also identity issues, language, nationality, economy, ideology, all that. Okay, but here there are so many approaches, but we are discussing only four approaches which are major in nature, which evolved in the context of other parallel progress in the area of political economy, technological revolutions, and global events over the last 3 to 4 decades. Okay, there are many approaches, but we are just taking up the major four approaches which were, you know, employed to understand diaspora of various global diasporas by diasporic scholars. What are those approaches? Classic class perspective, ethnic and religious perspective, linguistic and national subnational perspectives, and nationalist perspective. Okay, these are the four main approaches. Okay, by which diasporic scholars, they were trying to understand the dynamic nature of diaspora. Okay, of various diasporas. What is class approach? They use class paradigm, to understand the diasporic communities who scattered around the world, various parts of the world. Okay, class approach, Marxian approach. Okay, using the class paradigm. Diasporas in any countries are not uniform categories. These diasporas, they also have a class within themselves. For example, in colonial period, most of the migrants from India, they were just belonging to the unskilled laborers and you can say working class category. Okay. They went and settled in various parts of the world. They became a diasporic minority. And also the link between India was not that so strong like the migrants who are going to Western countries. They are from upper middle class, and they have a good connections with the homeland. You know, as Nirmal said, diaspora is always linking back to the homeland. That is the main criteria, or to call a community maybe imaginary or it may be real linkages between host land and homeland. That is what a community can be called diaspora community because of this kind of you know linkages, connections with the imaginary homeland or real homeland. Okay, so class approach tells us, to understand the various classes within the diaspora, how they are, the level of engagement with the homeland. Okay, this perspective tells us, what groups are more connected, who are more connected with the homeland. Okay, so class perspective tells us that thing, to us. The variety of classes within broad communities and their composition, destination countries, resourcefulness, and transnational engagement varies. So it depends on the class. For example, a working class Indian migrant cannot, have a close links with the homeland because he lacks resources. And also this linkage is also based on the policy of the host land also. Okay, so that is the aspect you have to understand. The next one, the different class of diasporic communities have not only different level of access to their culture, transnational linkages. I told you, they're all based on your class, where you are located. If you're well off in a host land, then you can easily connect back to your homeland and you can participate actively in various groups and your links are very stronger. Okay. For example, case study of the Indian diaspora. The Indian diaspora in Silicon Valley, mostly they are from upper middle class, will have a more privileged access to the transnational resources of economic, political, social than the labor migrants from the Gulf countries. Okay, so the class perspective gives an idea how or who are all connected with the homeland. Okay, so that is help us to understand diasporic phenomenon. There are labor organizations in Gulf countries based on class and caste also. Okay, then coming next approach, ethnic religious approach. Diasporas often identify with religion and ethnicity. What is ethnicity? The cultural differences. Ethnic approach has its own limitation because it only can focus on the process within the nation state. See, ethnic approach, this cannot capture the process of the transnational process within the community, diasporic community. Only it can analyze, it can bring out what all processes are going on within the diasporic community in a nation state. Okay, how culture is maintained, how they are identities, maintained by the diasporic community. This kind of ethnic or religious approach will help us to understand how diaspora within the process, social process within this diasporic community. But this approach cannot give us the linkages between homeland and diaspora. I hope you're getting it, what I'm saying. Okay. The ethnic and religious approach is good to understand the process within the community, but it cannot give us the big picture about the transnational aspects of the diaspora. That's a point, I want to make it clear here. The next one, further, there were two ways of looking at cultural identity. Firstly, in terms of one shared culture, which is collective and people with same ancestry hold within. So diaspora communities are constantly producing and reproducing themselves anew through transformation and difference. Okay. So that's what, I said diaspora is a very dynamic, it's a dynamic one, which is a multidisciplinary in nature, very complex phenomenon. They are like in the middle, they are sandwiched between homeland and hostland in terms of their identity. Okay. So it's you need a very strong all kinds of approaches to understand this phenomenon. Class approach, ethnic and religious approach. Okay. And you have different kinds of, where there are various approaches like essentialist approach and non-essentialist approach, to understand the phenomenon of diaspora that you need, to understand this complex phenomenon. Next is linguistic subnational approach, which means diaspora, you know, it's not only connecting to the homeland, they're also connecting to the region where they come from, okay, and also the language to which they belong. The real strength of diaspora community and the linkages with the home countries are all regional, subnational, and linguistic level. The classic example of such diaspora community is mostly found in countries like India. Diaspora is more pronounced in the regional level. Like, for example, Sikh diaspora, Punjabi diaspora, they are very connected to Punjab. Telugu diaspora is connected to Andhra and Telangana. Tamil diaspora is connected to Tamil Nadu, like that. Regional connections. Okay. Okay. That's what the hometown connections. Okay. So this approach will help us to understand at where they are connected. Okay. Where they are contributing back, how they are, what are the linkages between them and their hometown or the region. That's what this approach also will help us to understand the ongoing process in within the community. Okay. Often these diasporas go antithetical to the pan-national identity. History is witness to Khalistan movement. Okay. For example, Khalistan movement is today also is much more in the news. Okay, the Sikh diaspora wants to create a separate independent nation state for themselves. Okay, and LTT of Tamil diaspora is a classical example for this kind of engagements at the regional level. Okay, which is opposed to the pan-Indian identity. Okay, there are transnational networks of Telugus, Gujaratis, Tamils, Punjabis. These regional linguistic identities have played a prominent role in local politics, economic development, philanthropic engagement in the home regions. So this approach will help us to understand these kind of engagements with their region, with their respective region. Okay, clear? So now the coming to the fourth one, the major approaches. There are so many approaches, transnational approach. Okay, there are so many approaches for social movement approach also is there to understand the diaspora phenomenon. So we are just picking up only the major ones. Nationalist approach. Diasporas are creation of cross-border migration, and hence nation or nationality is a very core of diaspora identity. Okay, so Benedict Anderson, who theorized the nationalism and imagined community, observed that long distance nationalism of diaspora, is a means of strengthening the identity in the host land. Okay, digital technologies have further actuated the national sentiments of their respective diasporas and homeland. See, the long distance nationalism means the diaspora's connections, diaspora politics from host land towards homeland. Okay, which is like, for example, this long distance nationalism of Sikh diaspora is promoting the Khalistan movement in various parts of the globe. Okay, that's what long distance. The social media often worked as the mobilizing platform to diasporas to spread worldwide to connect with the nation. So nationalist approach is trying to understand how the diaspora, for example, a Sikh diaspora as a nation, you know, and how they are connecting back to the homeland. The nationalist approach will give us that perspective. Benedict Anderson talks about long distance nationalism, which is almost similar to the classical understanding of nationalism, but people they share a common history in the land. The only difference is remote from the country of origin. Okay, that's called long distance nationalism. So this kind of approaches will help us to understand the various process within the diasporic community. Okay, it's not a new phenomenon, but most of the diaspora communities, such as Mexicans, Armenians, Indians, Hungarians, Greeks, Irish, many others have already, practiced long distance nationalism. That's what is long distance nationalism. That is the diaspora's political activities towards their homeland. Okay, that is called long distance nationalism because they are not here, but still they are having political activism in their homeland to create separate homeland or go for a civil war or to support the terrorist movement or to support the religious fundamentalism like Islamic fundamentalism or Hindu fundamentalism. Okay, that is what long distance nationalism means. Okay, then what are the factors which are influencing these approaches towards diaspora? There are several factors. One is social media is very helpful because of the growth of information technology, which has revolutionized the economic political activities. Okay, and the everyday experience of diaspora. This social media is very helpful to spread their political ideas, their grievances. Okay, they are people easily can mobilize through this social media. That's called online digital mobilization to to push their agenda. Okay, and to get their opinion, public opinion, consensus for their vision or objective. A recent data by Kepo's analysis published in dataportal.com states that there are about 4.48 billion people are using social media today. Okay, today the digital divide is of course is there. Digital divide is in narrowing. Okay, it's shrinking, but still it is there. But still people they start using digital technologies, and it's easy to spread any ideas on social media today. Diasporic communities, so these kind of see these are influencing our approaches to understand diaspora. Okay, for example, the digital approach, or you can say like technological approach will try to help us to understand the technological connections. How technology is promoting diaspora connections will help us to understand how technology is playing a very important role in sustaining culture of the diasporic community, all that. Okay. The political economy approach, the rise of Asian countries, a new power has changed. Asia is emerging like China and India. So these also, diasporas look back towards their homeland today. They also, look upon their homeland for various support in the host land. The rise of nationalist movement, rise of economic and political clout also further accentuated the politicization of diaspora. Okay, for example, rising India has given them hope, you know, to fall back on India for any kind of support. For example, today India image is growing. The image of India is growing. The world circle, world countries looking upon India was resolving world issues, global issues. Okay, so which gives them a boost, for diasporic community to get politicized in their home host land. Okay, and also today, because of this globalization, you know, uh, the privatization, liberalization also has, these global economic processes also have really brought the diasporic community closer to the homeland, you know, and of course, in addition to the technological advancement. The multi-sided politicization of diaspora is due to many factors. As diasporic social formations are consolidated today because of these developments, inspired by success in Israel, India, China, and various attracting diasporic investment. You know, many countries have today they have a special economic plan for diasporic communities. They welcome diasporic investments for its own growth. Okay, homeland governments are crafting enticements ranging from dual citizenship. They are willing to give them because they want to, you know, take the support of the diasporas, for the growth story of any homeland. So there are two cases with Chinese and Indians. Okay, for example, the Indians have supported India in health, development of health sector, development of IT sector. China, though you must be knowing, the Chinese diaspora is very much, playing the important role for the growth of China, economic growth. You know, the Chinese diaspora have invested heavily in China in various manufacturing sector. The Chinese miracle is because of Chinese diaspora. Of course, India still could not win the Indian diaspora to invest in the industries or such kind of economic investment. But only thing, IT sector, we have received good response from the diasporic community, and they really helped the Indian IT industry to grow. Okay, and health sector like starting global hospitals, like for example, Medanda, or you can have Apollo Hospital. They're all from diasporic NRIs who just came back from diaspora and they just started this kind of hospitals, health sectors in new area cities. Okay, and homeland governments are okay. This is backside. Okay, now China has experienced one of the most remarkable investment from the Chinese diaspora. India has been successful in what? Attracting diasporic human capital in information technology. We human capital, okay, which healthcare and education sector they really is promising. And also global events and diaspora. Okay, the global events have really these two 1911. So 9/11 changed the perception of many host countries' population towards the immigrants and refugees. After this 1911 attack, okay, the host lands became very strict, and they started strict measures for immigration and all, and also the diaspora communities were seen as a threat to the national security. Okay, the xenophobic Islamophobia started. These things are also have factored on their engagement with the homeland. Okay, so this is also these events also influencing the approaches to understand diaspora. Okay, see, there are many anti-immigration movements and xenophobic attacks. Approaches to diaspora studies have also increased in many parts of the Western countries. from last 2 decades because of see the approaches will change according to changes which are happening in the diaspora community. It's not a it's not a template. Okay, approaches will vary according to changing time to understand the phenomenon. Okay, see the approach which was used earlier could not be used now because diaspora has moved on. Okay, you can't use those old approaches. Okay, that's what approach is also very dynamic, like a diasporic, a diaspora phenomenon. South Asian, especially Sikhs and Muslims, were targeted in the US, other parts of the world in the post 1911. So that is what these racism towards Indians in Australia, these things you'll be knowing it. The Filipinos attack in Gulf, a lot of things, which really these events have impacted on the diaspora relations with the homeland and also their migration pattern. That's what you have to use approaches according to changing pattern. Then Rashaelium Gillam, in his study on Muslims in post 1911, found out, you know, how the negative political rhetoric around Muslim Americans persist. So that is what you must be knowing a lot of, approach. This is see whatever I've discussed so far is called methodological approach. How methodological approaches have changed over a period of time. Okay. Now coming to theoretical approaches to understand the diaspora, the homeland, hostland relations, and who were you know, the diasporic community. I mean, who could be called diaspora? Okay, the academic approach to study diaspora has changed over the time. Broadly, there are two different ways to view these approaches. That is, idealistic notion of diaspora, that is Jewish model. In this theoretical model, diaspora is perceived as a victim. You know, this idealistic notion of diaspora, this Jews model, Jews theoretical model, which says diaspora is a victim. Diaspora community is a victim one. Okay, because who are the diasporas? Those who left the homeland by force, forced migration, and they lost their homeland and scattered across the world, and they're trying to you know create a new homeland for themselves. So that was the early model, theoretical model. Okay, so as present day we have inclusive approach, that includes all international migrations. Okay, migration like refugees and migrants, all that. In this approach, the approach is widely used over the period. Now, almost all today, everybody is called diaspora. Even a refugee, but also a voluntary migrant. Everyone is, called diaspora. Inclusive approach. So William Safran was the first one to, define and identify that, who are diasporas, what are the attributes of diaspora. Well, he was the first one to speak about that. He identifies six major characteristics of quality of diaspora. They are displaced community is dispersed at least two environments from the original homeland and have the following criteria to qualify as diaspora. Okay, he has given the checklist. Okay, what attributes will fit in for calling a community as a diaspora community. The community keeps memories, visions, and myths, okay, about the original homeland. Okay, and the community
Sir, you are muted.
Yes, now that's what I wanted to know.
Okay.
Ek minute.
Okay, sir.
So you can hear me now,
Yes, sir.
and my video is on.
The PPT is on.
Video.
Video. I have to check 1 minute. Yes, it is good.
Okay. So I'm discussing the theoretical approaches now. See, the earlier discussion was about methodological approaches, how diaspora could be understand from different points of view. Okay, which we discussed. Now I'm moving into the theoretical approaches, where I just started discussing William Saffron, how he, you know, identified, okay, who could be called diaspora. Okay, he, according to him, he has given, six categories, six kind of attributes. Okay, if a community keeps memories, visions, and myths about the original homeland, that can be called as, diaspora. If a members of a community feel they are not fully accepted by the host community, okay, in the end, they think they will return to the land where they belong to. Okay, that is third one. The fourth one, if they participate in the maintenance or restoration of this homeland. If the consciousness and solidarity of the group is defined by the relationship with the homeland. So this Saffron's definition is about Jewish experience. Okay, he theorized how Jews, faced the forced migration and how and what all process within the Jewish diaspora. Okay, and by looking at Jewish experience, he theorized, okay, this approach. This approach tells us the forced migration of Jews and also the creation of Israel and all that. Okay, so diasporic community. The next one is Kim Butler defined diaspora as framework for the study of a specific process of community formation. Okay, Kim Butler talks about how a community is formed. Okay, so he has given the framework to understand diasporic community in a host land. Today, it is used to describe the population which is considered to be deterritorialized and transnational. Today, diasporas are supposed to be transnational community and also displaced. Okay, it is a group which has its origin in a land other than their homeland in which it currently resides and whose social, economic, and political networks cross the borders of nation states, indeed span the globe. Okay, that is what a diaspora means. Okay, then Stephen Werterberg has given three meanings of diaspora. He has theorized who can be called as diaspora. Diaspora is a social formation which refer to the experience of the Jews and their traumatic exile from the historic homeland and the dispersal throughout the world. Okay, that is, how diaspora is a social formation. Okay, this form was later applied to the American African diasporas. Okay, I mean the forced migration model. Next is diaspora also, a community can be called diaspora if they have a consciousness of what diasporic consciousness means. They're having a transnational links with their homeland. Okay, that is called the diasporic community. Then diaspora as a mode of cultural production. Various cultural identities are maintained by diaspora by replanting their homeland culture or replicating their homeland cultural life in the host land. Okay, if they maintain or if they identify as separate, okay, that is what diaspora means. So that is what Stephen Wertowak has identified. But Stuart Hall has offered an important insight in diaspora. According to him, you know, the identity which does not fade even after their hybrid. Okay, diaspora is always a hybrid one. They are not like pure original, because they live in a host land. They will assimilate, they are acculturate with the homeland culture. So they are always hybrid in nature. But even then, they are producing, reproducing their own culture, and they're themselves different from the host land culture. That's what Stuart Hall is trying to understand diaspora phenomenon. Okay. Another definition diaspora is very important given by G. Scaffer, Gabriel Scaffer. He says modern diasporas are ethnic minority groups or migrant origins residing and acting in host countries but maintaining strong sentimental or material links with the origin country. That's what that's those people could be called as diaspora according to G. Scaffer. That is particularly modern diasporas are very closely connected to their original homeland because of globalization and also advancement of technology, which has brought the diaspora closer to the homeland. Okay, clear. It should be clear to you. Okay, such conceptualization was criticized by various scholars because this homeland, emphasis on return to home has been criticized by many scholars. For example, Safran is conceptualized mainly based on Jewish model of classical notion of diaspora. The term diaspora has very limited applications that time. Okay, so that's why now we have more, what is called dynamic way of understanding diaspora. That is called, you call it, the essentialist. They were trying to understand diaspora in a very limited way, but constructionist, you know, their approach is very really, they have given us wide scope to understand diaspora very comprehensively. For example, the social movement approach is also very helpful to understand the various movements, how these movements are uniting and bringing the diaspora community in the host land, and how they are, provoked to fall back on the homeland. That kind of discourse also, to understand the diasporic phenomenon in the host land. In a way, the idealization of home does not correspond to any kind of home anywhere in late modernity. So where symbolic or real boundaries of space and privacy are blurred. Today, for example, due to nation state is breaking up because of this globalization, all that. But still, you know, diaspora phenomenon is always connected to the original or the imaginary homeland. That's what, if you look at all these people theoretical approach, one thing you can easily find out, they always talk about the homeland orientation of the diaspora. That is very important, you know, criteria by which a community can be called diaspora. Nostalgia, strangeness, the sense of loss intensify the efforts of making a home. Okay, that is what people like Massey Cohen tries to further to make the term more flexible to adopt to other communities. Okay, see, Cohen tries to further make the term more flexible to adopt the other communities as well. Okay, see the saffron and also the big these people know they were just using classical Jews model, but Hogan's model is very broad, inclusive to understand the various processes within the diaspora. Okay, if a group of people is separated from their homeland to work or to trade by other colonial aspirations. Okay, and he talks about voluntary migration. Cohen's definition covers the voluntary aspect of movement. The members of a group have collective myth and memories about their country, location, history, achievements. This is what. Next, the third one, he says a group contributes to idealization, sustenance, restoration, security, welfare, even creation of an imaginary homeland. Okay. If a group supports a collective return to the original homeland, if there is strong ethnic consciousness, depending on a long-standing feeling of being different, a common history of destiny, okay, within the migrants. And also there's a problematic relationship with the host society in relation to a feeling emanating from the lack of acceptance. Okay, these are all factors which can be, identified within the diasporic community. Okay, there's empathy and solidarity with the other members, okay, of the ethnic group. The group can develop a tolerant, diverse, creative, and enriching life in the host country. The diaspora is in constant search for a place where it will reconstruct its past, imaginary, and future identities, roles, rituals, and beliefs. That is what diasporic reality. They live in past, at the same time, they look into future, okay, to reconstruct the identity. Okay. For example, Paul Gilroy and James Clifford have paved the way for this non-essentialist understanding of diaspora, which focuses on migrants, cross-border linkages, flows, and circulation, and practices of establishing social and symbolic ties rather than relying on notions of fixed connections. So that's why I said essentialists, they look at fixed connections, but non-essentialist theorists, they try to understand diaspora by looking at the, you know flows, the process, transnational process, circulations within the diasporic community. Okay, so identity is continuously mediated, reconfigured by different representations like language, practice, memory, fantasy, and so on. So Indian diaspora during colonial time is not the same as the recent Indian diasporas in USA, Gulf countries. I told you, it all depends on the various factors like its location, class, the policies of the host land, resourcefulness of the diaspora, all that. The profile of diaspora also very important to connect back with the homeland. So diaspora is also a category that implies multiple connections across space. Diaspora is not a place, a space. Diaspora is spread across space and flows of ideas and information beyond a singular nation. That is called diaspora. So there are a lot of works by these scholars. Okay, so I've covered two kinds of things today. Theoretical approaches to understand diaspora and also methodological approaches to understand diaspora. Then coming to conclude, see, diaspora research has evolved over the last few decades. It has grown up. It has picked up from 1990 onwards. You know, that is the time, this globalization, liberalization, and all started. Diaspora connections have increased. Because of that, diaspora studies also have become very popular. Only 1990s onwards. The place related analytical model and longing to return to no more control to the diasporic imagination. Now, the diasporic imagination is today continuous process of creating and recreating a shared diasporic space for dreams, fantasies, and missions. Today, diaspora, it's not possible to create a nation state or whatever. But now diaspora process is a continuous one, creating, recreating their homeland culture in the host land, rather than creating a separate homeland for themselves. Because today multiculturalism is practiced in many host countries, unfavorable policies for the minorities over there, which makes diaspora to stay comfortable, not to always to return to their homeland, which if it is not available, they don't want to create today. Today, creating a nation state is not an easy task. So diaspora also has realized, and now, they want to create their home within the host culture. That's what now you have to understand. And most powerfully, even violently, the diasporic imaginary emerges from the intersection of global transnationalism and re-nationalization. Okay, the interconnectedness, okay, no, today has increased because of this reconnectedness, national imaginary. So these things have really grown up because of development of, this communication and also structural shift in the host lands. Okay, so There are various methodological approaches, theoretical approaches to understand diaspora. And by using those approaches, we could easily comprehend the process, the happenings within the diasporic communities around the world. With this word, no, with this, I just try to conclude. Now I'm ready to take up your questions, if any, and let me just close my screen. Yes. I start. The floor is open for question and answer session now. Anybody? Any questions? Feroz, any questions from
Sir, Vidya has opened her mic.
Sudesh?
Sorry.
Is there?
Always I'm the one who asks questions. So now this question is for Mr. Swadesh. If you
No
answer, it will be very helpful for him. As a student, it is for me like a case studies, I can say. Let's take current issues, sir, and let's take today's issues. What is the role of diaspora in today's Karnataka elections and its results?
God, political diaspora.
Of course, because sir is the right person to answer for us, because I'm student and you are leading a team. So we need someone, intellectual who can answer.
So the question is to Sudesh or to me?
Yes, sir. No. If you answer, it will be helpful for Swadesh. And as a student, of course, it will be a case studies for us also.
Yeah, Sudesh.
What is the role of diaspora
Sudesh
in
is an activist,
Karnataka
he can
elections
tell
and
us.
results?
Sudesh, we are looking for your response. We are waiting for your response. Yes.
No questions from my side, but today we got good idea about approaches, different approaches for business and some Silicon Valley that people can interact with the white collar job holders, Telugu associations, many are working in US and Australia, Canada, UK. We got very good idea, sir. What are the approaches in diaspora?
Sudesh, I want to ask you, what is the meaning of approach? Like what is I explained in the beginning. So tell me, what is the meaning? Approach का मतलब क्या है? Sudesh.
You said many spheres. Spheres means many layers. In yeah.
See, approaches means the stand which you take to look at diaspora. Okay, the stand in which, for example, there are two kinds of approaches. One is methodological approach. For example, class perspective is an approach. Okay, so by this approach, you're trying to understand different classes within the diaspora and how they are connecting back to their homeland and what kind of issues and challenges they face in the host land. So this class approach will help you. So theoretical approach means you try to theorize, by looking at the various diasporic process. For example, there are two kinds of theoretical approach. One is essentialist approach and non-essentialist approach. See, the essentialist approach will try to understand diaspora looking at the cultural approach. Okay, how culture is maintained, okay, and who can be called as diaspora. Okay, by maintaining culture, maintaining their identity. So they're trying to maintain diasporic identity. That's called non-essentialist approach. The primordial approach. Okay, this is the non-primordial approach is like how the diaspora is maintaining their identity by having different flows, that is business connections, trade connections, and other cultural, connections with the homeland. That is called non-essentialist approach, theoretical approach. Okay, so these kind of approaches are helping us to understand a phenomenon called diaspora. Okay, So I think it will help you to for your research. This topic basically will help you to frame your research proposal for your research. Okay, clear? Yes, it should be clear. What about Nirmal, Shivshankar? I think Feroz, it's time to wrap up, close down. I think no response from the floor.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for this wonderful lecture. And for the participants, if you have any question to Dr. Dipti or Mahalingam, sir, you can post your question after listening to their videos also. So they are ready to help you out if you have any doubt. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you
Thank
can
you.
post your questions in the group. We have a WhatsApp group. You can post your questions so we can answer your queries, comments, observations. No problem. You're always welcome. Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So now we are just closing the session and we are going to meet in the next session. Okay. Bye.
In
Thank you,
fact,
guys.
I like to thank Feroz Khan for organizing this year lecture because no technical issue. Okay, only yeah. Otherwise, we get some technical problem, but this time I think I did not face much problem. Maybe few minutes I could not he could not hear me. Otherwise, I was audible and also it was very comfortable. So thank you, and also I thank all the students, and we can I won't call student, maybe I can say like you all good audience or participants, because you all very good, you know better than us because you have all field experience, you are working on the field. So thank you for joining and see you to next class. See you next class.
Thank you, sir.